CJ Flyer back with another YouTube video. So earlier today, it was announced that Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham were both given exceptions for having missed the 65-game minimum requirement in order to be eligible for end-of-season awards. So they are now eligible despite having only played 64 games each. Luka, of course, he missed some time due to injury, but he also missed a couple games due to being present for the birth of his daughter. And then Cade Cunningham, of course, had a collapsed lung. Honestly, I was kind of surprised they granted Cade Cunningham the exception because of the fact that it was only due to injury and not due to personal circumstances in addition to that. However, it's great to see because honestly, when I heard the news a couple months ago that Cade Cunningham had a collapsed lung, I mean, that doesn't sound good. If I heard that a friend or family member got a collapsed lung, I just assumed they're on their deathbed. Honestly, I would not think that you're going to be back playing professional basketball within less than a year. So nonetheless, it's very impressive, and it's good to hear that he is eligible for the awards. Now, a notable player that missed the requirement and did not get an exception granted, of course, is Anthony Edwards of the Minnesota Timberwolves. He averaged 29 points per game this season, and honestly, I'm kind of surprised they didn't grant him the exception. He ended up having an injury towards the end of the regular season, and he's still kind of, managing the injury, so to speak. It sounds like he's going to play in the playoffs. So maybe the league looked at this and thought, hey, if you're able to play in the playoffs with this supposed injury, but you're not playing the regular season, then why should we give you an exception? I assume that's the reason why his exception was not granted. He also wasn't just one game short of the requirement. He was 4 games short with 61 games played as opposed to 64 like Luka and Cade. But nonetheless, we now have Luka and Cade Cunningham eligible for these end-of-season awards, including the MVP award. However, they're not going to win it. Let's be honest. Let's be real here. The media loves to hate on Luka Doncic for any reason whatsoever. It doesn't matter. It could be because of his weight. It could be because it's just because his name's Luka Doncic, honestly. Because he moves slow, because he doesn't play defense, supposedly. There's actually a great video that I will link in the description talking about how Luka is actually just an above average to average defender and not one of the worst defenders in the league, and that it's slightly misleading because he just happens to move very slowly compared to other players, and that's why it's interpreted as he's a really bad defender. Anyways, I'm not going to go into all of that. What I do want to talk about is the MVP race, given this news. So again, we've got the usual suspects in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We got Nikola Jokic, and we got Luka Doncic. But now entering the ring, we've got Victor Wembanyama this year. We've got Cade Cunningham, and we've got Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, of course, has been nothing short of exceptional. With Jason Tatum being out most of the season, he's averaging about 29 points per game, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 35% from 3, 48% from the field. I mean, He's putting up the numbers, of course, and he's one of the main reasons that the Celtics are a top 2 seed in the East, despite not having their best player in Jason Tatum. Now, that all being said, when you talk about not having certain players and what your team's record is without certain players, I think that's something that should be looked at, quite honestly. When we're talking about most valuable player, it seems like everyone has their own criteria as to what exactly that means. Some people look at that and think most valuable player means best offensive player, because we don't have a best offensive player award. We have a defensive player of the year award, but not an offensive player of the year award. So oftentimes it seems like MVP ends up being the offensive player of the year of the award, so to speak. And so if we look at it strictly based on that, you're thinking points scored. Well, Luka is the scoring leader in the NBA this season, averaging 33.5 points per game. And despite only playing the 64 out of 82 games this season, he also has the most total points across all players in the league. So, with that in mind, I guess if you wanted to look strictly at scoring, Luka takes the cake there. He also averages an insane amount of 3-point attempts per game, and with that, high number of 3-pointers made per game. And if it weren't due to missing those games, he probably would have been the 3-point made leader this season over Cunningham, but that's besides the point. If we're looking at other stats, overall stats, points, rebounds, assists per game, Nikola Jokic most definitely takes the cake on that one. He's averaging 28 points per game, 13 rebounds per game, 11 assists per game, getting 1.5 steals and 1 block per game. I mean, just like usual, Jokic is doing it all. And to be quite honest, he's probably my pick for MVP if I had a say in the matter. Nikola Jokic is a very exceptional basketball player, and the fact that he leads the league in assists per game as a center, it's just always insane to me. Obviously, he's been doing things like this his entire career, but that's why I kind of put him towards the top. He just met the minimum requirement with 65 games played this season. Now, again, talking about teams' win-loss record without the MVP player in mind, I think that's something that should be taken into consideration. When we're talking the most valuable player, how valuable is that player to their team? You know, if that team doesn't have that player available to play and they aren't winning games without him, perhaps that means that they should be considered the most valuable because they're the most valuable to their respective teams. So with the Celtics, Jaylen Brown, with him being out, they actually had the best record amongst all of these teams if we consider Celtics, Spurs, Nuggets, Thunder, and Lakers without Jaylen Brown, Wemby, Jokic, Shea, and Luka. Yeah, the Celtics have the best record, and the team with the worst win percentage of all those teams without their MVP candidate is actually the Lakers. The 10 wins, 8 loss without Luka Doncic. Second worst is the Thunder without Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. They had, I think it was like 8 wins, 6 losses. So very, very subtle difference between the two of them. But that puts Luka and Shea towards the top there in regards to how the team performs without that player and how much they actually need them to play in order to perform well and win games. But again, that being said, Jokic is my pick. And then, of course, we got Wemby. Now, Wembanyama leads the league with blocks, 3 blocks per game. Of course, there is a Defensive Player Year of the award, and he's probably going to win the Defensive Player of the Year award, just considering that statistic right there. And the fact that if you watch games, there's been multiple games this season where a smaller player is driving into the paint and then they run into Wemby and they're immediately retreating out. Like they're not even attempting the shot. And just his presence alone affects the way that some players are opting whether to shoot or not, and the shot selection and decision-making going on the floor. So I have no doubt that Wembanyama is going to win the Defensive Player of the Year. I think he should. But as far as the MVP, I mean, his stats aren't bad, of course. 25 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game. He shoots threes at a high percentage, 35%. I mean, like, he's not a bad player, of course. But, like, I mean, as far as, like, MVP, if you're looking at stats, if you're looking at how the team performs without the player on the court, I mean, really, if you're choosing Wemby as the MVP, it's really just a vibe test, I guess. I mean, if we wanted to say based on the vibes, who impacts the way that the game is played the most, I would say probably Wembanyama. I mean, you got a 7'5" alien running around on the court that changes the way you choose to whether to take shots or not take shots, how you're going to play defense. Your whole defensive scheme as a team has to change with him on the court. So yeah, based on vibes alone, I guess you could give it to Wembanyama. Based on overall stats, you give it to Jokic. Based on offensive only, you probably give it to Luka. And based on how the team's able to perform without them on the court, you'd probably give it to Luka or Shea. That all being said, I find that it's probably going to end up being Shea winning the MVP again, because for whatever reason, team success overall somehow plays a huge part, and especially with the media narrative, I don't know. I don't get it. I could see Wemby winning it all this year, again, based on vibes and based on the narrative that, oh, the Spurs were a team with a losing record a year ago, and now Wembanyama is playing at an elite level that he hasn't played at before, and here he is, and he's got 3 blocks per game and 25 points, and he's just killing it out there. I mean, I could see it going Wemby or Shea. That's kind of how I see it at this point. No one wants to vote for Jokic anymore as the leading MVP, and I feel like Luka, honestly, I feel like Luka's never going to win an MVP until the team that he's on wins a finals. And then it'll be the year after that the narrative will finally shift. Oh, Luka's a winning player, and then he'll win the MVP. That's probably how it's going to go. the unfortunate truth of it. Even though he is like a, top 3 player every single year, and arguably 2 years ago he should have won the MVP over Shea and Jokic. But that's, again, I've talked about that before on this channel. Again, that's besides the point. All these folks are going to win All NBA first team. And yeah, let me know what your MVP pick is in the comment section down below.